The great man that is Joe Hockey is our point man in the United States, former Australian ambassador to the United States, former treasurer and our dear mate, of course, leading voice in Bondi Partners here in Australia and the US, and he joins us now from Washington, D.C. Great man. Let's talk about this, where all the opinion polls, they keep running a certain way, but you can't help but feel it's 2016 all over again, where everyone in New York on television is telling you one thing, and then people in the suburbs start to tell you something else. Including, I've found some fascinating polling out of places like Pennsylvania where, while the polls say Biden wins, the majority of people say they expect their neighbour to vote for Trump. There's the Florida tightening about Hispanics. Look, again, it's a coin toss, but what's your sense about where we sit, 60 days out?
I still think that if an election were held today, Paul, Biden would win, but it's going to be a last-mile race. The challenge is that voting has already opened in a number of states, and the question in my mind is how many people are actually going to vote. Because in more than 8 states now, they're just sending ballot papers to people's homes. They don't have any application process. They just send, perhaps in some cases, multiple ballots to individual homes. And I think there's going to be a very real and lengthy debate after the election, which will end up in court, and it'll prevent a winner being declared about the way the election is being held. So I think it's got a long, long way to go. As of today, Joe Biden probably would win, but there's no doubt that Donald Trump has momentum. And when events occur, like the terrible shooting in California of 2 policemen, that just reinforces Donald Trump's message about jobs and security.
Well, but also, interesting little fork in the road about that particular moment, right? That you see it and you go, well, hang on, this is clearly an example about somebody wildly out of control. The Black Lives Matter lunatics turn up to the hospital where the police are and scream, oink, oink, and say that they're going to die, like low-life stuff. The president says the immediate response is death penalty for the bloke responsible if a court can go that way. Joe Biden's response, yes, on Twitter, he said that the legal process should go through, but he's already starting to use it as an issue to talk about gun control. I'm not really sure that this has the same visceral response as a school shooting.
No, it doesn't. And he was talking about assault weapons, whereas the shooter that went up to the car clearly on the video was holding a hand pistol. But that's semantics in one sense. It does play into Donald Trump's narrative about Joe Biden wanting to take away guns. And that's a very sensitive issue, as we've discussed on your show. It's a very sensitive issue here in the United States, completely different to the circumstances in Australia.
Well,
and there's no doubt that law and order and security is going to be the main platform for Donald Trump going forward. But also he's getting on with the job of running the government. I mean, tomorrow here in the United States, he is signing not one but 2 peace agreements in the White House between countries in the Middle East. And that's unprecedented. It's unprecedented for any administration to be in that situation, let alone to happen now. And that's a big step forward on peace in the Middle East. I'll be intrigued to see whether he does get the Nobel Peace Prize. I suspect he won't. Barack Obama got it before he was even elected, for being elected. Donald Trump delivers genuinely. I'm surprised at this, but he is genuinely helping to deliver peace in the Middle East. And I'm pretty sure that the Nobel Committee won't be giving him a Peace Prize simply because of the politics.
No, well, of course, they've got to give it to the school student, Greta Thunberg, and plenty of others that will make the lefties feel better. But I wanted to take some time, because I know that you're a man who is acutely aware of the security threats around the world and acutely aware of the games that China are playing. And we know today, via some reporting, and Sherry Markson did a great job about this today in The Australian, that families of Australian politicians are the targets of some Chinese surveillance. Now, high-profile people, from everyone from politicians to business leaders, union officials, TV people, all the rest of it here. There's also, supposedly, some attention that has been given to your family. How do you feel about your family being observed by China because of what you have done professionally?
Well, it's spooky. It's spooky because, you know, we know that we're monitored, but to extend it into the family is absurd and somewhat abhorrent unless they are political players. And frankly, it doesn't surprise me in the modern era, and it's meant to be a private company in China. I mean, the thing about China is there are no privacy laws. There are no guide rails other than those set by the government in Beijing. And so there are a lot of companies that are collecting a vast amount of data around the world and doing it through both nefarious means, but also doing it through mainstream means. And they're collecting the data without knowing specifically what they're going to do with it. And this is specifically why the United States banned TikTok. I have always said to my children, and Melissa has said to the children, that if you post anything on the internet, it's like a tattoo that you can never, ever remove. It's there for the rest of your life. And so you've got to be very careful about what you post on the internet because it reveals so much about you. And in the case of TikTok, it reveals your life preferences. It gives facial recognition for the rest of your life. That data is being collected in some countries, and obviously in China, and being hoarded until they know how to develop the algorithms to take great advantage of your identity and your personality, your character, and everything you do. And in this situation, they have no privacy laws. They don't have the guardrails that you'd have, say, here in the United States or in Australia or in most other countries. And it's disappointing. I look forward to hearing from the Chinese government about why that data was being collected and how it's going to be used, but I suspect I won't hear about it. And there's one other thing. It wasn't about China critics, because Bob Carr is one of the people that has been had data collected on him. So it's both for the pro and anti-China people, and also everyone in between. Everyone in between, and I count myself in between. I mean, realistic about China, but also not blindly sort of criticising them at every point.
Now, also, just finally, you worked with and you wrote beautiful things about the former New South Wales Premier, John Fahey, but I also wanted to say part of his career that has been sadly lacking in many of the public obits was that this bloke was the Minister for Finance in the Howard government. He was there from 1996 to 2001 as that minister, and he was, in my view, as important as any other key economic figure in the hard yards that were able to take us from the problems that were inherited by the Howard government to the world that was left for future governments. What about him just from that perspective as well as the bloke that you know? Is it fair to say that he should be remembered for his federal service as much as the images that we all love and know about the bloke jumping for joy when we got the Olympics?
Oh, absolutely. He was incredibly humble, John, and you know, he was a character as well. I mean, he was a bog Irish Catholic, former seminarian, rugby league player. He smoked way too much, drank, you know, a bit. He was witty. He could be an angry bear, by the way, and he could talk the leg off a snooker table. I mean, he could talk all night and barely take a breath. But he had incredible attention to detail, and in that 1996 budget, he did a phenomenal job, absolutely phenomenal job, making some really hard decisions, for which, you know, everyone claims credit. When, you know, what I've found, Paul, is that when the hard decisions are made, there's no one around you.
Yeah.
But later, when they deliver the benefits, everyone was the father and mother of those great decisions.
Correct.
Right? So, but I can tell you, I know it sounds familiar to me, but I can tell you that John Fahey was hugely important. I mean, things like selling the rest of Telstra and you know, the government used to have cleaning services and a range of other services that really aren't the job of government. And he he, ended that sort of largesse, if you like, in government.
Yeah.
And he made some really tough decisions, but that created the platform for the Australian government to get not only the budget back to surplus, but to pay off all government debt. Now, will that happen again in my lifetime? I seriously doubt it. But, I hope one day it happens in my children's lifetime. But to do that, to pay off all government debt, the foundations were laid by John Fay, and he deserves the credit of a nation for what he did. And to his family, I really feel for you because they've gone through tragedy themselves, and he was a stoic and formidable character.